Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Salam Media. I'm your host for this evening, Dhakir Dawood, taking you through for the last half an hour of the show. It is 8:30, and we stuck to our promise. We're going to be profiling some of South Africa's favorite sporting stars, sporting administrators, and because it's Women's Month, we're sticking to women on the agenda. Nothing else. Gents, you had your time to shine. It's time for the women to do their thing now. And yeah, going forward, we look to, let's say, balance things in studio so that we can make an impact, so that women's sport can be seen as much as the male sports in the country and around the globe. So this evening, we're going to be chatting all things hockey. We're going to be chatting to Taheera Mooi. She is a hockey coach and also a sport administrator by trade. She's got an amazing story, and I feel like this story needs to be shared with the world, the Salam Media following. And if you're watching the show right now, I think it's time to hit the share button, like and drop a comment in the comment section below. Interact with us and pop us some of your questions that you'd like to know from a female hockey coach and administrator. But for now, that's enough of the talking, enough of the intro. Good evening, Taheera. Thanks for joining me on Salam Media. I really appreciate it.
Salam alaikum. Kasi for having me.
It's always an honor, Taheera. I mean, your story is just so phenomenal, coming from what many would say the kasi, the wood, and now going on and coaching a provincial team, right through to the highest level. Let's get stuck into it right from the start. I mean, where did your journey and when did you fall in love with sport hockey?
So I come from a hockey family. My aunts all played hockey. My mom, my dad was an ex-SA and provincial coach. So I'd say it's in my blood. I didn't have an option. I was just born and bred into the hockey shoes.
It's quite an interesting one, because if you look at our communities, and when I talk about our communities, I'm talking of communities that are not as affluent and previously disadvantaged communities. Hockey isn't one of the first sports that come to mind.
No, not at all. It's hockey is actually seen as a white sport, but it's also very expensive to play hockey. The equipment is very expensive. Yet alone transport to the facilities to play hockey. I mean, in our areas, we hardly have an astroturf to play hockey. Most of our facilities are used for other sporting codes, such as your soccer and your cricket. So we have to come out of our communities and go to the other areas, which costs a lot. It really costs a lot. And yet, I must say, our community has a lot of talent hidden under.
And I mean, for you, what was it like in the hockey space, starting at a young age, and then having to travel? I mean, at the time, were you conscious of the fact that, or did you ask yourself the question as to like, why isn't there hockey in my community? Why do I have to travel so far out to go play? And what did you find it like? How was it playing outside of your community, mixing with a different crowd?
It was a bit challenging because I'd have to go to training. At that time, I was playing for a club in my between 13 and 16. I was playing for a club in Sandton. That was St. Stithians, the school. And it was very challenging. I had to go to trainings at 7 o'clock, and from there come home at 9, go to school. So very challenging, but we made ends meet. I had a very supportive family and club framework. So I thoroughly enjoyed my upbringing as a hockey player.
And I mean, as a hockey player, growing up, what are some of your milestones and achievements that you'd one day, I mean, want to tell the next generation? Well, not even one day, it's happening now. What are some of those achievements that you want to tell the next generation watching the show right now?
So basically to never stop giving up. I was challenged personally with a health scare back in 2005, where I was diagnosed with epilepsy. And that really was a big hurdle for me, especially playing such an active sport that required a lot of oxygen through the body. And now I'm diagnosed with a lack of oxygen illness. However, I never stopped giving up, and I never let that get to me. And from there, I made provincials from the age of 12 until under 21. Thereafter, I focused more on my coaching career. However, I do still play Premier League hockey, and I'm now currently an FIH international hockey coach, level 1. And I also, as you mentioned, I'm coaching the Gauteng under 18 ladies second team, as well as part of the Jozi Warriors franchise under the GHL banner. So I would tell most, and I tell them every day, most of my learners and the pupils that I coach, never to give up and to keep believing and to have faith, because anything is possible, anything you can overcome.
Hmm. I mean, clearly you're a walking example. And it's just so nice that it's actually the stories that can be told. And these are some of the stories that would be inspirational to the next generation, and especially aspiring hockey players and hockey stars. And I mean, throughout high school, what was it like playing hockey? And because that's ultimately your make or break stage in your life, when you know, okay, cool, I'm going to go pro, or you realize that you have to look at other avenue within the sport. What was it like for you in the high school stage of your hockey career?
So throughout high school, my main goal was to make the South African team, and things changed for me at the age of 18, my under 18 year, where I completely just wanted to enjoy my hockey career and play without pressure. It was a lot of pressure put on me with my studies and my development that I also did in the community. So I opted to pull out of my provincial league at the age of 21, and decided to go with my dad and my sister and our close relatives to actually start up an NGO and an MPO called In Touch Community Support. And that for me was a hidden dream of mine, and it's possible today. We have four hockey teams, two boys and two female teams, and our current female team is in the Premier League team. So I feel that I'm more fulfilled by giving back to my community than what I would have been if I had to be part of the South African team. It would have been nice, but I had bigger dreams. I did have bigger dreams.
And it's definitely having an impact on society, on the community. And for those of the listeners and viewers that obviously are not familiar with the NGO, can you tell us a bit more about what your NGO does, and what impact you have directly on society?
So our NPO was actually In Touch Community Support. We started as a drug awareness NGO, where we took positive activities such as sport to drive positive beings. And we started off with a couple of youngsters in our community that we took off the streets and kind of guided them and used sport as a rehab. And from there, we just excelled. And we also have another branch, not only hockey, but we also have our soccer that is mainly run by the BFA. So yeah, we use sport to drive positive activities and positive lifestyles within our community. And this is speaking the entire West Rand. We started off in the West Rand, but In Touch actually is part of the Gauteng Hockey Development Framework, where we do development free of charge all over Gauteng. We started in the West Rand, but we do it now throughout Tshwane, Sedibeng, etc. So we're really covering a lot of ground and a lot of space. And this development is called the fundamentals and modified hockey, where it starts from any age. Any age, anyone can do it with any equipment and any space.
Space is a key factor there, and I feel like we're going to chat a bit more about that later, because I've got quite a lot of questions regarding space and hockey and the current community that you're in. You then decided to get involved in administration, and you went on to study sport management. Why sport management of all courses?
So I wanted to go into physiotherapy, but it was very narrow. And I felt that sports management was BCom sports management was more of, there was more of a variety where I could go into administration, I could continue for sports kinesiology as well as management as a whole, business, etc. And like I've mentioned, I wanted to start this NGO with my family, and I felt that sports management would be key in the startup of our NGO. But yeah, I've worked on a lot of projects with the sports management degree behind my belt, and those would include the Rio Olympics, the yes, the send off of the South African team. I worked on that project, and I've worked on a lot of sports awards, Gauteng Sports Awards ceremonies and broadcasting. So it came with a lot of ups, I must say.
And I mean, looking at it and sport management, having running your NGO as well, how's the one complemented the other? I mean, having now the academic background, do you think that it helps you run your business or your NGO more fluently?
It does. It does. It's basically putting it into practical use. I do take my knowledge from what I've learned and put it into the NGO, especially when it comes to operational things and marketing. But yeah, it's good.
The reason I'm asking these questions is the stories are very alike. I'm sure if my mom's watching the story at home, the same kid that had a dream of becoming a physio went on and studied sport management. Now is in broadcast.
Yeah, it's very broad. It's very broad.
So looking at
We
it
all
and
wanted
now,
to be a doctor one day, but yeah.
those dreams. But fortunately for you, those dreams never tend to die. Still in hockey, now you're coaching at a provincial level.
Yes.
Getting to that stage, what was it like in the build up and getting your levels behind yourself in order to be accredited internationally so that you can now go up and head the provincial setups where you can now coach our second team in Gauteng?
It was a lot of work had to be done, a lot of discipline, sacrifices, especially when it came to my social life. I had to sacrifice a lot, but all worth it, all worth it. A lot of guidance as well from my previous coaches, such as Coach Polo, they call her in the hockey framework. Yeah, she's been an absolute star, as well as Jozi Malela from Southern Gauteng Hockey, and also my dad, Mr. Mervyn Mooi. But like I've mentioned earlier, I've had a really great framework and support structure behind me.
And like looking at that structure, looking at that framework, there's been so many phenomenal hockey players and now hockey coaches. Looking at Coach Polo, being one of the youngest and let's say currently the most successful coach in hockey. How does that make you feel as a woman coming into the sport, knowing that there's people in your age category that are achieving these things, and it is possible for you to now have dreams and aspirations of taking the next national team to the Olympics?
I personally feel very privileged to firstly be in the framework and to be accepted in the framework. And I'm really looking forward to much more that I can give off to youngsters, especially between the age of 13 and 18. And I'm really eager, I'm driven, and I'm very excited to get going.
Look, we're excited to follow your journey, and I'm sure many more out there also want to follow your journey as well. But later we will get into that. Looking at things at the landscape of things now, you're coaching a provincial team. What are some of your personal goals that you see yourself achieving over the next 5 years?
So my 5-year goal sets are to get my level 2 within the first 2 years now, to get my level 2 international grading, coaching grading, and then coaching the under 21s maybe within the 5 years. And last but not least, just to sustain our NPO and
Mm.
maybe get our men's team to Premier League, because currently they're just below Premier League. So that should be my 5 year. But as well, I would love to coach abroad in another country and come back again to South Africa.
And what draws you to coaching abroad, and what makes you wanna go coach there?
So what draws me to go overseas is not that we're lacking anything here, or that it's not comfortable for me here, but I'd like to gain more insight and different
Mm.
expertise from abroad to bring it back to our communities and to our country. Because as you know, hockey is not a priority sport at the moment and in South Africa. And I'd just like to go abroad and maybe
Mm.
change the mindset of the world, and so how the world looks at South Africa at a hockey point of view.
No, definitely, and I think that there's definitely a room for that, because South Africa had an upset, if you want to call it, at the Olympics, where we've put ourselves on the map, and from the team starting out not going to the Olympics, looking for funding, and then eventually going to the Olympics and claiming one of the big scalps in their second last match, if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken. Um,
Yes, the big Germany. They made history.
one of the front runners in the hockey fraternity and in the hockey space, the Germans. So looking at that, looking at your future, we're excited. And now I think, for many of the listeners and viewers that have been inspired by your story, where can they stay in touch with what more Taheera Mooi has to offer to the hockey fraternity, the sporting fraternity, and also, let's say, the West Rand, Johannesburg, and South Africa as a whole, for people to stay in touch with your journey? Because if that didn't inspire them, then I don't know what will get them motivated.
So, viewers, anybody listening, you can catch me on Instagram. My handle is tai.29, and as well as on my Facebook page. And also every Saturday morning at the Bosmont football grounds, we give free lessons for development of any age. So
Hmm.
from 9 to 11, if you're on the West Rand and you'd like to join hockey, come along every Saturday morning.
And also, the details for the NGO, so that people can stay up to date with what the NGO is doing as well.
So the NGO is called In Touch Community Support. We are based in the West Rand, but we mainly mobile. And you can, the number, if you would like to catch us, it is 083 308 2525, or our email is intouch-csg.co.za.
Okay, I hope that the listeners and the viewers got that. And if you didn't, remember, this interview will be saved on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So the easy rewind button if you want to just make sure of those details. But Taheera, thank you so much for sharing your journey and
Thank you so
inspiring the
much.
next generation. We really appreciate it here. And I know that someone watching this interview will definitely feel inspired and motivated to take on the world after this.
Shukran so much for having me. It was a blast.
Afwan, it's always a pleasure. Hope you have a good weekend further. And once again, thank you so much. Shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.
That was Taheera Mooi, hockey coach, provincial hockey coach, and she's the owner of the In Touch NGO, doing amazing things out there. As you heard, if you want to play hockey between 9 and 11 on a Saturday morning at the Bosmont soccer grounds, you can get down there and, pick up a hockey stick and get started in playing some hockey. That was her story. Amazing, amazing. It just shows that you can overcome anything. But next up, we're going to be chatting about what it takes behind the scenes for a player. Sport administrator Nini Moya chats to us a bit more about What goes into being a football agent? Have you always wondered what happens during transfer season? What it takes to seal big deals? What it takes to get in that sponsorship that an athlete always wanted on their side? Stay tuned to Salam Media. After the break, we're going to be chatting all things sport administration, what it takes to be a football agent with Nini Moya.